Rian Hale did not expect his ship to explode in the middle of a quiet supply run. One moment, he was checking fuel levels, and the next, a blinding spark lit the cockpit. The alarm screamed, lights flashed, and he felt the entire ship twist, as if pulled by a giant hand. He did everything he could to keep the vessel steady, but his hands shook, and the ship spiraled down through clouds he had never seen before. When he finally crashed, everything went silent. The only sound left was his own loud breathing. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself lying on soft grass that glowed faintly blue. Large leaves moved above him, shaped like wide fans, swaying even though there was no wind. He groaned and tried to sit up, but something touched his shoulder. He froze. His heart jumped. He turned slowly and found 3 small creatures staring at him. They were no taller than a human child, covered in soft fur that shimmered in different colors: green, blue, pink. Their big eyes blinked at him with curiosity, not anger. One of them made a small chirping sound and pointed at him with a hand that had 3 long fingers. The creature's antennae bounced as if excited. Rian raised both hands and said softly, "Hello. I'm not here to hurt anyone." The creatures exchanged looks. Then one of them stepped closer and gently tapped his arm. It made another sound, similar to a little hum, and then gestured for him to stand. Rian slowly rose, ignoring the ache in his body, and followed them. He did not know where they were taking him, but he understood one thing: they didn't seem hostile. That alone was a relief. The creatures guided him through the glowing forest until the trees opened to reveal a village. It was beautiful, in a strange way. Round homes made of smooth stone sat in neat rows, each decorated with small lights that floated around like tiny fireflies. More of the small aliens appeared, gathering around him. Some hid behind others, peeking out with wide eyes. Some whispered in soft, musical tones. Rian felt every stare. He tried to look friendly, even though he was nervous and confused. After everything he had seen in space, he knew it was better to follow calmly than cause panic. The 3 who found him led him to a larger structure in the center of the village. Its doors were wide and carved with swirling patterns. Inside, an elder waited. Her fur was silver, and her eyes were deep purple. She leaned on a smooth wooden staff and studied him carefully. Rian stood still, unsure of what to do. The elder made a long humming sound, as if chanting. 2 younger aliens beside her repeated the sound, but in a higher tone. Then the elder spoke something in her language, and one of the creatures who found him stepped forward. It touched Rian's chest, lightly, and nodded. The elder raised her staff, and all the aliens in the room lowered their heads for a moment. Rian felt a little lost, but after a while, the elder looked at him and made a gentle motion for him to follow. She led him to a bowl-shaped device. When she touched the top of it, light rose into the air, forming pictures, floating images he could not understand. There were drawings of a tall figure that looked like a human, holding something glowing. The drawings showed him surrounded by many smaller creatures, the same small aliens he was seeing now. The elder pointed from the glowing picture to Rian, then nodded, as if confirming something. Rian blinked. "Are you saying humans? You know humans?" She nodded again, tapping the glowing picture. Rian tried to understand. Maybe ancient humans had traveled here long ago. Maybe myths had formed. Or maybe the Miru, if that was their species, just believed stories about tall outsiders. The elder stepped closer and touched Rian's hand gently. Her voice was soft as she spoke a word with clear care. "Keeper." Rian frowned. "Keeper? Keeper of what?" She stepped aside and pointed toward a long hallway. The villagers followed as she guided him toward it. Rian felt nervous again. The hallway ended at a round door, and when the elder pushed it open, a sound rushed out: soft cries, squeaks, and little giggles. Rian's eyes widened. Inside the room were dozens of alien babies. Some were rolling on soft cushions, Some were bouncing lightly. Some were crawling with antennae flicking all over the place. A few clung to each other, glowing softly. The room was full of warm light and gentle noise. The elder smiled at him and repeated, "Keeper." Rian shook his head in surprise. Wait, you want me to take care of them?" The elder nodded proudly, as if offering him great honor. Rian blinked slowly. He had expected hard labor, maybe building something, or protecting the village from predators. But this, caring for alien babies? One of the tiny aliens crawled toward him and tugged at his boot. It stared up at him with massive, shining eyes and let out a tiny chirp. Another rolled over and bumped into his leg, giggling in its own alien way. Rian felt something warm inside him. He crouched down and gently picked up the first baby. It weighed almost nothing. The creature blinked at him happily, then curled into his arms as if he were some kind of familiar figure. The elder tapped her staff on the ground in approval. Several villagers clapped their small hands excitedly. Rian let out a slow breath. "So, this is my job here?" A young villager made a delighted sound and nodded so fast its antennae flapped. The elder touched her chest, then touched Rian's chest, then gestured toward all the babies. She seemed to be saying something like, "You are one of us now. Their well-being is now your duty." Rian looked at the room full of tiny glowing creatures. He was alone on an unknown moon. He had nowhere else to go. And strangely, these people seemed too kind to push away. He looked at the little baby in his arms again. It stared up at him, trusting him instantly. He smiled a little. "All right, I guess I can try." The villagers cheered in soft, musical tones. The elder nodded with satisfaction and led the others out, leaving Rian inside with the babies. He stood in the middle of the room, unsure of what to do first. Some babies crawled toward him. Some kept rolling. Some peeked out from behind cushions. He sat down carefully on the floor and placed the baby on his knee. The creature bounced happily. Two more crawled toward him and grabbed his hands. One started making little beeping noises, trying to climb onto his lap. He laughed softly. Okay, one at a time." He looked around the room, trying to figure out how their caretakers usually handled them. There were small bowls of food, something glowing softly, as well as warm blankets made from a strange, soft plant fiber. There were toys shaped like feathers, stones with holes, and even little instruments that made soothing sounds when touched. Rian picked up one of the glowing bowls and sniffed it. It smelled sweet, like fruit. The babies immediately looked at the bowl with excitement. Rian smiled. "So, this is food, huh?" He held the bowl near one of the babies. It reached in with its small hand and scooped out a glowing bit, then happily shoved it into its mouth. The creature vibrated in happiness. "Good," Rian said softly. "That means you like it." More babies crawled over, reaching for the bowl. Rian fed them carefully, making sure each got a little. Some babies were impatient and tried to grab the bowl themselves, causing some glowing food to fall onto the floor. Rian quickly wiped it up and handed the babies small pieces so they wouldn't fight. After feeding, they were energetic again. A few tried to climb onto him. One sat on his shoulder and chirped loudly in his ear. Another wrapped its tiny arms around his leg and refused to let go. He chuckled, rolling his eyes. "You guys are like a whole storm." As hours passed, he slowly started figuring things out. When the babies glowed too brightly, it meant they were excited. When their glow dimmed, they were tired. When their antennae drooped, they were sad. When they stacked cushions, they wanted to play a game where they tried to climb the tallest one. By the time the elder returned to check on him, Rian was lying on the floor with 4 babies sleeping on his chest, 2 under his arms, 1 curled up on his stomach, and 1 hugging his boot. The elder gasped, softly, surprised but pleased. She walked over and gently touched the sleeping babies. She looked at Ryan with respect and whispered the same word again. Keeper. Ryan sighed in a tired voice but smiled. I think they like me a little too much. I. The elder chuckled. A warm sound like soft bells. She motioned for him to rest and promised another caretaker would bring him food. But when she tried to lift one of the babies off his chest, the little creature grabbed tighter onto his shirt and refused to let go. The others followed, clinging tighter to him. Ryan blinked. Huh, they don't want to leave. The elder stared in surprise. She whispered something in her own language, and the other villagers who had followed her looked amazed. Ryan could not understand the words, but he understood the emotion. They were shocked that the babies had bonded with him so quickly. The elder bowed her head to him in gratitude. Ryan watched her, confused again. But in his heart, he felt something growing, a sense of purpose he did not expect to find on a strange moon. He had crashed here by accident, but now he was responsible for the smallest lives in the village. As he lay there with the babies breathing softly against him, he whispered to himself, well, I guess this is my new life. End quote. Outside, the village lights glowed gently under the strange sky. And somewhere in that moment, Ryan understood that this peaceful alien place might become his home. Ryan woke to a soft glow filling the room. The alien babies were already awake, crawling and rolling over each other, their tiny antennae flicking in all directions. He yawned, rubbing his eyes, and tried to stretch without disturbing them. One little creature, pink, with sparkling green eyes, immediately crawled onto his chest and chirped happily. Ryan chuckled, holding it gently. All right. Breakfast first, little one. He moved carefully to the glowing bowls filled with the soft, jelly-like food. The babies seemed to sense the morning routine and gathered around eagerly. Each one reached for a bowl or a glowing spoon, their little hands moving faster than Ryan could react. He laughed as one baby toppled over trying to grab 2 portions at once. Patience, he said. The babies only blinked at him, too busy with their own excitement. The elder had told him yesterday that the baby's growth stage was delicate. Each day required attention, patience, and constant observation. Ryan had assumed he would simply watch and feed them, but today he realized the task was more complex. He needed to understand what made them happy, what made them scared, and how to manage their sudden bursts of energy. And they were fast. Faster than any human child he had ever seen. Their small legs could climb over cushions, dodge each other, and even leap short distances. One baby bounced from a soft mat to his shoulder before he could react, chirping like it had just won a race. Ryan took a deep breath. Okay, human logic versus alien chaos. Let's see if I can win today. The first test came almost immediately. The glowing babies began vibrating in a synchronized pattern. Ryan remembered the elder mentioning something about their glowing, indicating emotion, but he hadn't yet learned the signals. The babies' lights brightened, and their antennae quivered. Their excited noises rose to a pitch that almost made Ryan's ears hurt. He tried soothing them, picking them up one by one, but the glow only intensified. It was like handling a living lantern. Sweat formed on his forehead. He tried humming softly, a technique that often calmed human children. To his surprise, it worked partially. Some babies stopped bouncing and glowed a softer color. Encouraged, Ryan continued, humming gently, rocking one baby in his arm, holding another against his chest. Slowly, he managed to reduce the chaos, though a few still bounced energetically, unable to calm themselves. When the room finally quieted, Ryan looked around and exhaled. His shirt was damp, his hair messy, and he had glowing stains on his pants. One baby curled around his neck, another on his lap, and a third crawled into the crook of his arm. He smiled tiredly. "You guys are exhausting," he said. But I think I like it. Just then, the elder returned. She observed silently from the doorway, her purple eyes shining. She stepped closer and placed a hand on his shoulder. In her language, she spoke softly, pointing toward the babies. Rian understood her meaning. He was doing well. The little glow that remained in the babies' bodies was steady and even. They were not in distress. The elder's approval made him feel a small sense of pride. But the day was far from over. A sudden alarm echoed through the village, a loud, resonating hum. The babies stiffened, their glow changing from soft pastels to sharp, bright flashes. Rian froze, recognizing the signs. A dangerous stage of growth was approaching. According to the elder, if the baby's energy was not managed properly, it could cause them harm and even attract predators. He had read her instructions in his mind as she had spoken yesterday. But now the urgency made everything he knew feel insufficient. He picked up the nearest baby, whose glow was already brightening rapidly. Okay. Calm down, he muttered. The baby's antennae quivered, but it trusted him enough to cling to his shirt. He moved to a cushion and sat down, holding the baby against his chest. Slowly, he began humming, rocking slightly, speaking in soft tones. One by one, he gathered the others. And like before, the melody seemed to soothe most of them. Yet a few still resisted, bouncing uncontrollably. Rian realized he needed a new strategy. He looked around and noticed the toys, the glowing stones, the soft mats, the instruments. He carefully arranged the babies on the mats and handed them the instruments. When a baby touched a stone and it made a soothing chime, its glow softened immediately. Another pushed a small feathered toy and seemed fascinated by it, calming its vibrations. He experimented quickly with different toys and textures, moving like a conductor of a tiny, glowing orchestra. Hours passed like this. He rotated the babies, sang softly, and managed their energy in waves, checking each one carefully. By midday, the room was quiet, the baby's glow steady and soft. Rian collapsed onto a cushion, exhausted but satisfied. This was far more work than he had imagined. But it was also the first time he truly felt useful in weeks. The elder returned again, this time bringing food for him. He thanked her silently and took the meal, which smelled rich and sweet. As he ate, he noticed some of the villagers watching from the doorway. They seemed curious, perhaps a little fearful, but mostly impressed. One of the younger villagers stepped forward and chirped softly, pointing toward Rian. The elder smiled, nodding in agreement. Rian guessed it meant they were starting to trust him not just with the babies, but as a part of the village. The afternoon brought new challenges. The babies began interacting more with each other, climbing over Rian, rolling around cushions, and occasionally knocking glowing food onto the floor. Rian learned quickly that their social bonds were as important as their physical needs. Two babies would start to fight over a toy, and their glow would intensify with agitation. He had to intervene, gently separating them, distracting them with other objects, and using calm humming to redirect their energy. He discovered that laughter, or the closest approximation the babies had, was an excellent way to lower their glow. He started making silly faces, bouncing gently on the cushions, and rolling the toys across the floor. Slowly, the babies began to mimic him, their little movements becoming more controlled and joyful. Their glowing patterns changed with the emotions of the room, creating a light show that filled the room with color. By evening, the village's central bell chimed a soft vibration across the air. The elder had signaled the end of the day. Rian carefully laid the babies down in their sleeping nests. Blankets wrapped around them, soft toys at their sides. Each baby glowed softly, now calm and peaceful. He sat nearby, still humming lightly, ensuring they all remained settled. The elder approached and spoke in her melodic language. One of the villagers translated through gestures, She wanted Rian to rest. He nodded gratefully but noticed that the babies reached for him even as he tried to leave. Their trust in him was remarkable. That night, he sat outside the baby room, leaning against the wall, watching the village glow under the strange sky. The Miru lived in harmony with their environment, and their reliance on him was growing. He realized that in just one day, he had not only kept them safe but had begun to understand their needs better than they could have expected from an outsider. Suddenly, a soft rustle came from the forest. One of the younger villagers peeked out, then quickly signaled to Rian. He followed quietly and saw the cause: a small predator sniffing around the edge of the village. It was harmless for now, but its interest in the glowing babies could be dangerous. He had no weapons, no human gadgets with him, only his wits. He remembered a trick he had used back on Earth when camping: sound and light distractions. He gathered a few glowing stones and began tossing them near the predator, creating moving lights. He hummed loudly, mimicking the warning calls of local wildlife he had seen earlier. The predator paused, confused by the sudden noise and moving lights, and eventually retreated into the forest. The Miru watchers gasped and chattered excitedly. The elder came forward, eyes wide with awe. She touched Rian's hand, then gestured toward the babies. He understood immediately. He had just protected the future generation. For the first time, he felt truly connected to this alien world. That night, Rian lay in a small room the villagers had prepared for him. He thought of the day, the feeding, the chaos, the baby's glowing patterns, and the predator. It was exhausting, but it was meaningful. The human had arrived by accident, but now he had a purpose greater than he had imagined. He had learned that caring, patience, and observation could bridge the gap between species. And as he drifted to sleep, he heard the soft humming of the Miru babies in their nests. He smiled, realizing that tomorrow he would face a new set of challenges, new joys, and new lessons. He was no longer just a traveler or an outsider. He was a keeper of life, a protector of the small and fragile, a part of this village now. The alien sky above glowed faintly, reflecting the quiet glow of the village below. And somewhere in that luminescence, Rian felt hope that even in a universe so vast and strange, a human could find a place, not by force, but by care, courage, and the simple willingness to help.